So I'm going to begin with a man who attended cross-burning when he was a lad of 10 and was taken by his father. 13 years later, at the age of 23, he's a leading member of the White Aryan Resistance, which calls itself WAR as an acronym, and is an organization of white separatists and skinhead youths from across the country. I'm talking about John Metzger.
Good evening.
I was going to ask you, I haven't known you very long, I've known you about 2 minutes, but where did you get the idea that you were a member of a superior race?
Well, I think I had a lot of my opinions were set directly down from my father, of course, and I listened to him very intently. I read quite a few books that he recommended. And then I had the opportunity to go to public school, high school, to be converted into believing the myth that all races are equal. There's no distinction between people. Everybody should get together and live in this la-la land and kind of utopia.
See, in your paper, the outfit of paper that War puts out, my eye was caught today by a cartoon. It has a picture of Dr. Martin Luther King giving a speech saying, "I have a dream."
Yes.
Then it has a picture of a white man with a smoking rifle pointed through a motel window saying, "Well, I've got a dream too, Buster, and it just came true." Now, you talk, when you're on television, not like that. Is that for public relations purposes?
Well, our paper, which anybody can receive, I'd be happy to send it to them, P.O. Box,
Yeah, I know.
California, 92028. Well, if you're for free speech, you shouldn't mind giving the address.
Why not?
Okay. And they can get the most satirical, racist, aggressive, radical, white separatist, whatever term you want to put on it, comics, thoughts, ideas. And we don't pull punches. And we have our columns. Some are a little more looser than others. And these cartoons, I didn't write them, but I'm proud.
I get the impression we're getting nearer to the point now, because in the list of political prisoners, white Aryan political prisoners you have, is the name James L. Ray, who I seem to remember is the man who was in a convicted of killing Dr. King. I don't know whether you know anything about him that we don't know, or whether you just claim him because he did that. What do you think about violence? Do you consider the U.S. government legitimate or illegitimate? Do you consider it a fair target for the use of force?
You know, a lot of people try to corner me on this idea of violence. I don't like violence. I think it's a last resort. I don't have any problem with it if it is a last resort.
Yeah, look, everybody says that. I mean, the fact is your organization is called WAR.
Yes.
And it talks in its stuff, which I can again read you if you doubt me, about a real physical fight between the races, which the whites must win. And it describes the government as an illegitimate occupation government of Jews. Now, why don't you just fess up to whether this is true or not, and we won't waste any time?
It's not a government of just Jews, it's a government of white sellouts. And then there are a disproportionate amount of Jews that obviously are in the scene also.
What does the word Zog mean to you?
Zog is Zionist-occupied government. Now, I prefer the Jack London idea, the title of one of his books, The Iron Heel.
Perhaps you do, but in your newspaper you refer to the government as Zog, and you just said that's
Zog.
what it stands for.
That's not a term that I use that often.
Just to clarify, because people are going to ring in and we won't waste any time.
Yes.
You think Zog is a correct description of the U.S. government as it now stands?
Like I said, other people use it. I prefer the term.
No, your organization uses it.
Zog, that's fine. Yeah, okay. That's fine, Zog, Zionist-occupied.
I just want to get an idea of what it's like to be you, which is, an idea I don't have many chances to get. You get up in the morning, you do your stuff, you get the groceries, you open the newspaper, you think, oh, well, the Jews are controlling the government again, and you get on with whatever's next.
No, I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm anti-Jewish in many respects.
That's a distinction I have to call you on. I mean,
a lot of people consider me anti-Semitic. I'm not really anti-anybody until all of a sudden they have a problem with me. See, and that's one of the problems I have with Jews in particular, if we want to stick to that issue, is the fact that I'll be doing things, the same thing, maybe something that we took from how Israel's doing, some of their racial policies and things like that. And all of a sudden they don't like it and they cry foul, but it's okay if they do it.
Look, I suppose inevitably this leads us to the H word, as some would call it. I mean, in your newspapers and magazines, there's a lot of stuff about the late Führer, Adolf Hitler. People are invited to write in, get his speeches, his stuff, and so on. In plain words, are you pro or anti-Hitler?
Well, I never knew the man. I think there were things that he did that were politically correct, and then there were things that he did that I don't agree with.
Right. It is said of your father and yourself, as it's been said of David Duke, who says he doesn't do it anymore, that you celebrate Hitler's birthday every April with ceremonies and nostalgia. Do you want to take the opportunity to affirm or
I
deny
celebrate.
this?
No, I affirm that. And what's funny is, I celebrate things like that, just like Jews celebrate massacres of Arabs and things through their biblical times. So that's the only problem I have with people, is the fact that people can associate and have
you
heroes.
celebrate what you say you detest? I mean, I'm asking about your mind now. You add
I don't look at
the
when I celebrate something like that, it's not Hitler, it's the whole German era. It's the fact of Europe coming out of the depression and the passion and the emotion.
But having just said you were anti-Jewish, you say that when you worship Hitler, you're only doing what a Jew would do. Now, are you in any kind of confusion here?
So first of all, I don't worship Hitler. It's just something, there are things that I agree with, things I don't. And that's the bottom line.
I admit you're out of the mainstream and deserve protection for that reason. Quite a lot of pro-Hitler stuff, more than you get in the New York Times, certainly. So giving you the chance to say why there's so much stuff friendly to the Fuhrer.
Well, that's just something that we put in our newspaper. If people have problems with it, I don't want to stick to the issue of Hitler all
put it
night
like
long.
this. I mean, I've noticed this. Some people say that the Holocaust didn't take place. Others say it did, and a jolly good thing, too. Do you have a line on either of those propositions?
I believe in might is right. That's something that is used against me, you, people that are politically incorrect.
Sorry to recall you to the question, but
I don't believe in wholesale extermination of people. I believe in distancing myself from them. Now, when you have your house sold from you, from a civil suit that was fraudulent from day one.
To recall you to the question, do you think there was or was not an attempt to exterminate European Jewry?
I could care less if it did happen, didn't happen. It's just a historical, it's 50 years ago. Gee whiz, we're almost in the year 2000. I mean, where does this ethnocentrism
Well, we had a president
along?
who said it hadn't happened in the lifetime of anyone he knew. But I'm sure you wouldn't want to be confused with Ronald Reagan at Bitburg, would you?
No.
Well then, why don't you just come right out with it?
See, the
question
problem
is a simple one. It either happened or it didn't. You can say yes or no, and you either can then say good or bad thing. But I can't understand why someone who runs a brave outfit called war would be ducking a question as obvious as that. How can we get on with it?
That's a subjective word. The problem is, with interviewers like you, is I'm not answering it the way you want.
No, you can say what you like. You have time. Are you not just trying to get away with something here?
The problem I have is an interview who goes on, drones on and on about 50 years ago. I think there's something
I wouldn't drone if you'd answer the question. You either believe there was an attempt at a final extermination of European Jewry,
I've made my
or there was
clear.
not. No, you never said...
There's a lot of discrepancies and I can care less.
Okay, so you don't care. In other words, so if you were told it was true, you wouldn't say the person saying so was a liar and a prisoner of Jewish propaganda.
I doubt.
You're not even a Holocaust revisionist.
Well, history is not history anymore. It's by special lobbyist groups that come in and try to knock each other to get certain ideas in.
If you were in power, what do you propose to do with the many non-white people in America? Do you support deportation? And if not, then what should be done to them?
I would like to handle things nice and peacefully like everybody would, but obviously in a tense situation when we built this country, white people...
You couldn't guarantee being Mr. Nice Guy?
I couldn't guarantee it.
No.
They're not nice against us. Like I said, integration was forced upon us by bayonet. Full-grown men with bayonets at the throat of little kids that oppose non-whites coming to
It takes a lot to make me cry, Mr. Metzger, but actually the question that was asked now leads me to a question I had in mind for myself. Again, to quote from your leaflet, the white race traitor is your #1 enemy.
Yes.
You go for the black Americans. You go for the Jews, the Japanese, and so on. But
they're side issues.
When it really comes to it, it's someone like myself, for example, who you look at me and you think, that's the real scum, right?
Well, no. I mean, obviously, you're very low on the totem pole. I'm talking about people that command...
Well, you're very low in the
policies of
food chain if it comes to that. But I mean, the question is...
Well, I haven't been eating up
The question
yet.
is, you know, don't you, that there are people who look extremely... wimpy like myself and so on, who might shape up and would think if you ever looked like doing any of this, that we would start doing what we haven't done this evening and taking it seriously.
Well, what amazes me in New York City, for someone to tell me that everybody's equal and all this gobbledygook, to actually say that with a straight face, you've got to be insane.
Well, as you know, or perhaps as you don't know, New York City is partly dedicated to that proposition, as is the Statue of Liberty.
Our problem is the U.S. government and white people in general that have abandoned the idea of racial separatism and being proud of their race and their accomplishments. If you take the pride out of a unit,
right,
then you have no interest in surviving. And I'm trying to get that instinct back in.
If for a second we would take that as your debating position. Wouldn't it have an edge that cut the other way? Doesn't hatred of others lead to hatred of yourself? In other words, you end up really detesting white people more than anyone else.
I detest people that just sell out their own people, hypocrites, beat around the bush, things like that. I mean, my concern is for the white race. I can't be concerned. Mr. Farrakhan could deal with the blacks, that's fine. Other racial leaders could deal with their own people.
So it must be very harsh for you when most of the white race thinks you're white trash.
Well, I think that's funny, and that's a misstatement, because that's not the response we're getting. And we'll see. I like it when people underestimate us.